21st century, in a globalized and increasingly similar world, there are few places where there are no longer any borders to ride on horseback. Mongolia, an East Asian country between China and Siberia, is one of the few places in the world where the ancient nomadic way of life is still preserved. 80% of Mongolia's land is grasslands, and it is still a country of herders who herd sheep, goats, cows, horses, yaks, and reindeer. These herders need to change camps 2 or 3 times a year to provide their animals with plenty of pasture.
It is the 19th largest country in the world, with an area of 1.5 million square kilometers, 3 times the size of Spain.
However, it is one of the least inhabited countries in the world. 3.5 million inhabitants, of which 30% are nomads living in steppes, valleys, taiga, and deserts. 50% live in the capital Ulaanbaatar, and the remaining 20% live in urban areas spread across the country. The result is an average density of 1 person per square kilometer outside the capital Ulaanbaatar.
Mila and I traveled to northern Mongolia in 2005 on the back of their brave little horses, guided by our translator Chuka and our guide Dasha, from Lake Khovsgol to the Ulaan Mountains in the eastern taiga, where the reindeer herders, the Tsaatan, live.
That experience and the hospitality of the Mongolians and the Tsaatan left such an unforgettable positive impact on us that it was clear that we would return in the future, and if possible with our sons or daughters.
And so came the summer of 2023, 18 years later, a good time to ride again in Mongolia with our 2 daughters. Uxue, 12 years old, and Garazi, 9 years old.
And we decided to return to the same place as 18 years ago, in 2005, but this time with a more ambitious goal. Starting from Khovsgol, south of Lake Khovsgol, ride along its western shore and up the Great Darkat Valley, over the Jiglegin Pass between the Koridol-Saridag Mountains and the Bayan Mountains, to the village of Renchin-Lumbi, situated in the south of the broad and populous Darhat Valley. From there we ride north along the eastern side of the valley with the Bayan Mountains on our right, into the eastern taiga of the eastern Sayan Mountains, where we reach the first camp of the reindeer herders, the Tsaatan. From there we descended south to the northern capital of the Darkat Depression, Tsanganur, and then we ride up into the western taiga between the Ulam Mountains to the second Tsaatan camp. Finally, we started our way back through the western Darhat Depression to Renchin-Lumbi, from where we crossed the great Koridol-Saridag mountain range to our starting point, the village of Khovsgol, south of Lake Khovsgol. After 22 days and 465 kilometers on the back of our Mongolian horses.
On 31st July, we can see the capital of Mongolia from the plain. From the air, we can see that the large coal-fired power plants are still there. We are surprised by the large size of the buildings and the extent to which the city has expanded into the hills and valleys to the north with Ger or Yort districts.
Accommodated in an old Soviet-style building, like most of those that made up Mongolia 18 years ago, we immediately experienced the local food.
However, we soon discover a totally different city. A city that is booming. We are struck by the number of skyscrapers that have been built and those that are still being built. Construction cranes are piercing the sky.
These modern buildings house offices, luxury hotels, shopping centers, fine restaurants, and also apartments whose prices have skyrocketed. The city's urban planning has been completely transformed over the past 18 years, thanks to the economic boom that the copper, gold, and coal mines have brought to the city over the past decade.
Four coal-fired power plants located in the city itself produce central heating for the entire city, as well as almost 1,300 megawatts of electricity for the city and the rest of the country. These four power plants produce 78% of the country's electricity from burning coal, which creates a major pollution problem in the city. In total, 86% of the country's electricity comes from burning coal.
The pace of new construction is such that in the blink of an eye, it is engulfing the suburbs where the poorest inhabitants continue to live in their traditional ger or yurts.
One of the problems of this rapid growth is the heavy traffic. Traffic jams are a daily routine. And trolley buses and buses are overcrowded.
If there is one thing that has really struck us in the Ulaanbaatar of 2023, it is the huge number of young people on the streets. It is another sign of the great cultural change taking place in Mongolia. Herders save money to send their sons and daughters to study in the capital.
Particularly striking is the concentration of young people gathering in Genghis Khan Square, playing their favorite sport, volleyball, on a large carpet of green, simulating a grass field. Something that seems to have been forgotten in the urban planning of the new city.
But if there is one thing that has not changed in the city, it is people's love for traditional music and dance, such as that offered at the Mongolian Opera and Ballet Theatre.
Buddhism is practiced by 50% of the Mongolian population, after it was forbidden during the Soviet times. In 1990, the freedom of religious worship ban was lifted, and many Mongolians returned to practicing Buddhism of the Tibetan school.
The city of Ulaanbaatar was originally established as a center for Buddhist monasteries around 1640. From then until the Soviet Revolution, temples were the basis of the city, around which other mobile and permanent facilities were built.
Most of the Buddhist temples were demolished during the Soviet era, and only a few survived, such as the Gandan group of temples and monasteries in the west of the city. Today, the new modern city has grown to such an extent that the Buddhist temples occupy a residual and very limited space.
The most visited monument in the capital is the Tibetan-style Bodhisattva Chenrezig Temple.
Inside is a 25-meter high standing statue of Buddha, which is visited by thousands of devotees every day.
In this other temple, we had the chance to listen, together with hundreds of worshippers, to the teachings of an important Lama.
Another of the city's traditional sites is the Black Market, whose original name is Narantul. Despite its sinister name, it is a huge market where locals, especially people from the countryside and surrounding districts, come to stock up on everything from leather goods and boots to electronics and household goods, knives and equestrian items. And everything needed to build their own gear.
Like this family that has just bought everything they need to build a new gear, in the countryside or in the suburbs of the city, we don't know.
Our real purpose was to buy some riding boots at a good price. It was not easy, especially to find boots in my size, 45-46.
And after a lot of work, we succeeded.
The new skyscraper city is surrounded by girls districts in the hills and mountains surrounding Ulaanbaatar.
These circular structures of canvas, insulated with felt and supported by poles, have housed Central Asian nomads since before the time of Genghis Khan.
The suburban girls districts are the result of strong internal migration, especially since 1991, when Mongolia joined the market economy with a change of regime after the end of the Soviet era.
Shepherds left the countryside because of the low value of livestock, the exposure of their animals to disease due to poor veterinary services, and massive livestock deaths caused by dizud, a succession of droughts and severe winters, especially during 2000, 2001, and in 2010. Thus, in 2003, a law was approved granting each citizen about 700 square meters of land in urban areas, which further exacerbated rural to urban migration.
Currently, 65% of Ulaanbaatar's population, more than 1 million inhabitants, live in Ger districts because they cannot afford the high prices of the apartments.
Each family protects their 700 square meters with 2-meter-high wooden fences. They have no running water supply, no paved roads, no sewerage. The toilet is just a hole, like in the countryside.
They also have no central heating, so each house or ger burns an average of 3.5 tons of coal and coke a year to heat their homes each winter, when temperatures can drop to minus 40 degrees Celsius. The smoke generated from this burning pollutes the air throughout the city, making it one of the world's capitals with the highest rate of respiratory illnesses, especially among children.
It is not really a very child-friendly city. Garazi is amused by the little electric cars on offer in the large Genghis Khan Square.
And so we leave Ulaanbaatar and take a flight to the north of Mongolia, to the small town of Murom, from where we start our 22-day horseback riding adventure through the mountains and taiga between Lake Khovsgol and the Siberian border.
We will tell you more about that in the next chapter.